Hey there. We welcome you into another edition of the Lion Country Kia Goon and Ironhead show here at Quaker Steak and Lube in a beautiful State College. And what a weekend, dear Goon. Awesome. I mean, if you are a football fan, and who isn't? Who in their right mind isn't? What a weekend. I thought it was a crazy college football Saturday, and then the Steelers-Bengals game alone, I feel like topped everything on Saturday. That was the most – it was just the craziest game. I had resigned myself, obviously, a couple of times to the Steelers losing and very frustrated because I really thought the Steelers were the better team that day. I don't know that I think the Steelers are the better team moving forward, but I thought they outplayed the Bengals. I thought they were made more plays more consistently, all of that. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to give this thing away. And then, depth at weird positions sometimes rears its head. And there's no question that the long snapping situation was because, McPherson is good from like 70 in. He's pretty much automatic. And it just was crazy. And Minka Fitzpatrick, once again, proves that you can't overpay for what he has brought to the Steelers. It's been unbelievable. I am
unbelievably
too.
Great trade on their part. To a team that really doesn't trade often.
No,
they don't do it, but they saw it. And
what a win.
Do you know the story on Fitzpatrick, though? That Nick Saban has come out and said he is the greatest football player he has ever coached.
Well, I will say
that's an unreal statement.
And listen, I certainly understand and completely get the log snapping situation, and no doubt that contributed heavily to the Steelers' victory. But
they made two.
It is still to get in there on an extra point. I don't care, new long snapper and timing off or not. Like, that is willing yourself to a
we're not going to lose
victory. Yes, making play, and there just aren't a lot of guys that would do that, even in that circumstance. And you could just see. It was coming through the television, the determination there by Fitzpatrick that he was not going to allow that kick to be made. I don't know. It was, at the end of the day, a game that easily, obviously, could have gone either way.
Yep.
I think it is a huge win for the Steelers, and given where they're at, it comes at a heavy cost, and I do worry with the injuries, and certainly to Watt moving forward, the impact here for the Steelers, because that's the other. Fitzpatrick obviously had a sensational day, but TJ Watt is just an unstoppable force. That dude is just unreal. And kind of same thing. Like, he just kind of wills himself sometimes. It's okay, we got to make a play. No matter what, I'm going to go do it. And I don't know. It's special to have two guys like that on your defense if you're a Steelers fan.
Two things that happened in that game that could have changed, it should have changed, and you sort of have to blame coaching on this, and that was the snapper and the kicker on the game should have been winning field goal when there was the high snap. It was third down. And that punter's just got to catch it and kneel it. If the timing is off that bad, make it fourth down, you back up 7 yards, you call a timeout, you kick it. That he should have known to have done that. And then late in the game, they were punting the ball away in overtime, and the clock was running. They punted the ball 15 seconds ago on the game clock, and it was like, you don't want to give them more time, and they lost the last second field goal. So let's think about this: Eagles, Penn State, Steelers, Pitt, Notre Dame, Texas A&M all lose.
And Alabama should have lost.
Florida.
Alabama should have lost. All the talk about that safety. Good. I went if you go and look at the run that Bryce Young had to set up the game-winning field goal, and he's getting all kinds of credit for it, the reason he turns the corner is there is a blatant hold by that right tackle. He has the jersey, and listen, I get it. The way the game's called, right, but he pulls it. I mean, as Young is coming out, he pulls it and turns the shoulders. I mean, that was a good play by Young, but the contain was lost because of a blatant missed holding call against Alabama. And
that's a special world we live in when Texas is not getting their own calls in Texas.
Yeah, crazy. But
think about that.
It was just an absolutely crazy weekend for Penn State.
Go back to the Alabama game. We were sitting there watching it in the parking lot, and we were like sitting there, and I'm like, I mean, and you think about what I'm going to say right now. When has the Alabama kicker ever had any kind of pressure on him?
True.
I mean, really none. And he just drilled that. I mean, he was like a 9-star recruit, of course. So he's been there 18 years probably. So, I mean, just amazing. And then they called the timeout, and I'm like, oh, here it comes. He's going to miss it now. He's going to miss it now. He's going to feel the pressure. Good for him, just straight through the middle of the upright. So it was funny sitting there saying he had. But I was thinking about it. He's never had a pressure kick like that in his college career.
Yeah.
But what a good weekend, man. Great weekend to kick it off.
Yeah. Bad couple of losses for the Big Ten West. I will say the Big Ten East is coming out looking great to this point. But outside of Minnesota, and I don't know that you'd say they've been overwhelming, but outside of Minnesota, I don't know that you have a lot of faith in anything you're seeing in the Big Ten West right now, other than Nebraska. Obviously, Nebraska has been formidable right from the get-go here this season.
What are you thinking? What's the name you hearing? Because I'm hearing one name. Brenneman is the one who said it to me. Adam Brenneman said it. If Nebraska doesn't go after everything they have in their repertoire to go after Bill O'Brien, they're freaking crazy. There's a guy who's been through it with us up here in a bad environment.
I don't know if he wants though to go back to college. Do you think at this stage? Do you? I think he's itching to get back to the NFL. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think recruiting.
He's a college guy. I think he realizes that.
Do you see? I don't think that. I think just the opposite. I don't think the recruiting thing. The Alabama situation is nice for him because I mean the recruiting kind of does itself. And I'm not saying he's not out there busting his tail, but I mean it's. I don't think he'd have interest in it. I really don't. I think he wants an NFL gig. And if he wanted another college job, I don't think Nebraska. I mean, I'm with you that it's worth Nebraska making the call. I think you'd be crazy to take that job right now, no matter who you are. I mean, obviously somebody's going to take it, and it's going to be an opportunity for somebody. But I'm not sure O'Brien can't pick a better spot.
I think he has a better chance of getting a college head job than he does an NFL head job. Does that sound right?
I don't know. I mean, you look at some of the guys that are in the NFL right now.
Oh,
I mean, Lovie Smith for crying out loud.
My God Almighty, what happened last night?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that and O'Brien, I mean, I know it wasn't the results they were looking for, but it wasn't exactly a disaster there with the Houston Texans.
4 playoffs.
And when you look at some of the, again, coaches that are getting second and third opportunities here in the NFL, I think the success that he's having at Alabama, I don't know. And the pedigree with, I was going to say with Bill Belichick, but the Patriots got to be looking to get a new coach now, right? Like this is a disaster in the making in Foxborough.
It begs the question. Is it Brady or Belichick?
Well, I will say that roster, I am surprised at, and I get it, we're one game in. I don't think the Patriots are doing much in that division. Let me put it this way. Doing much, I guess you can define a bunch of different ways. I do not think the Patriots are going to the playoffs. I think they are definitively the third best team in that division. I mean, it's Buffalo clearly at the top. Dolphins, I think, may be ready to finally capitalize. We'll see. It obviously is going to come down to Tua's consistency, picks. But I mean, those two rosters to me are clearly ahead of what the Patriots have put together this year. And then, the Jets are still the Jets, so you have that going for you for the Belichick-led Patriots. But that team, I'll be very, very surprised if that team ends up in the playoffs this year. I just don't think there's enough. I just don't think there's enough talent on that roster to get them there.
Spent a lot of money on the offseason in the last 2 years. I mean,
that was a slow-looking football team.
Yeah, they didn't look good. They did not look good at all. And the Dolphins looked absolutely. They looked like they were in Lamborghinis down there in Miami. My God, they were running around. And then I'm going to go with the Eagles and go to the NFC East and. Cowboys just going to be the Cowboys again, and then the Giants and the Redskins are vastly improved. Vastly improved. They're very. I mean, jeez. You see the rookie of the year odds have gone in favor of Jahan Dotson right now. He's the odds-on favorite to win. Took over Kenny Pickett as the defensive rookie or the offensive rookie of the
year. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out.
Two touchdowns opening game. I mean, we are pumping some players into the NFL. I'm telling you that.
No question
man.
About that.
And it was just everything about the week. It was just fun. I mean, it was great weather up here for the game here. But we started on Thursday night and we were talking about how it was a fool's line watching the Rams being an underdog at home as the Super Bowl champions, and they didn't do anything to say, they should have been favored in that game because, I mean, that was a tight game. And then I closed my eyes over a little bit, and I came back, it was 10-10, and then boom.
But even when it was tight, like it did feel, and listen, I mean, it felt like the Steelers had control against the Bengals too. So, I mean, I get it. It can change quickly. But from the get-go, it felt like the Bills were the better team. I mean, even when it was 10-10, I'm like, yeah, but man, Buffalo, and I wasn't necessarily expecting them to pull away and win as handily as they did, but it felt from the start like that was just the better team, the better quarterback, the better coach, the whole bit.
And the fact that people they're still doubting Jared Allen to me is like, just keep doing it. Just keep doubting the guy. He's just going to keep winning.
Josh Allen. Yeah.
Josh, sorry.
Yeah. No, and listen, I think that it is going to be interesting to watch this season unfold because, again, everybody is on the Bills bandwagon. I mean, that they are the consensus Super Bowl champion pick. But there's a couple of things that I think that the Bills really have working for them that make that pick, I think, a really solid one. And one is that there is that hunger, right? I mean, obviously the city is hungry for a championship because it's been forever since they've been, in the Super Bowl, let alone, obviously having never won it. But I think that the players, too, for the last 2 years, like they feel like they were the best team. I mean, I think in that locker room, if you put truth serum in them, like, no, we know we were the best team last year. Think we were probably the best team the last 2 years. And so I think there's a lot of drive, a lot of, a chip on their shoulder, even though people are expecting them to win. They feel that, hey, we have to go prove something to everybody, including ourselves. And I just think there's a lot of maturity, a lot of good experience on that team. And it just feels like they have that balance, offense, defense, running, passing, the whole bit. And, again, injuries can derail things quickly in the NFL. So that's always a caveat. But, boy, if that team stays relatively healthy, the key figures stay healthy for most of the season, I'm with everybody else on the Bills bandwagon. And listen, if the Steelers don't win the Super Bowl, the Bills would be the team that I'm pulling for, because I just again obviously love that coaching staff, like the overall fan base. And
I had to pose the question. I'd like to know your answer to this, because my predicament is when the Eagles play the Bills in the Super Bowl, who do I have to root for? So yeah, no Booch's over here, but you don't have your friends on the staff.
Well, yeah, if the Steelers and Bills play in the AFC Championship game, I can tell you there's not even a second thought. Two guys you grew up with
at the high school.
No, I hear you. That's a different animal.
See, Booch doesn't get it. Booch is the angry Phil. He's El Buche today. He's El Buche. He's the.
I can't even talk about the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
They're going. They're going. I told you last week they're going. It's a done deal. Wrapped up. It's unbelievable.
Let's turn it to Penn State for a minute, Goon, because the one thing. Listen, it's Ohio University. You're supposed to go out and hammer them. Penn State went out and hammered them. I do think there are still some concerns for me with Clifford's consistency. I just think that again, he is good. He's really good about 50% of the time. Pretty good about 30 to 40% of the time, and just a little shaky that other 10% or so of the time. And it just it worries me. And I get that there's no quarterback controversy. I'm not saying there should be, but man, Aller just looks the part. I mean, he just and again, I'm not saying it's his time now. I'm not, but that guy looks like what a seemingly 20th year senior that Sean Clifford is. Aller looks now the way you would hope Clifford would look at this stage of his career. And obviously the ceiling here is pretty substantial with Drew Aller when you're talking about two games into his collegiate career.
The Vegas odds that readjusted today?
On what?
It's been all over Twitter and stuff like that, but Drew Aller is 100-1 to win the Heisman. Clifford's 250-1.
Well, there you have it.
Well, there you go. They know something we don't know, boys. So, you know what? I'll go back to what I've been saying the last couple of days, and that is that, and Coach did it last week, and he did it again this week. He has guys playing meaningful downs. I mean,
yep.
When the game was in and out,
and I didn't think he would. I will be the first to say I was telling you last week. I didn't think that would happen with Aller. I mean, I thought with the other guys, but but I'm glad he did, and I think it speaks to two things. One is I do think Franklin. I think what happened at the Iowa game last year resonated with him, and he is understanding maybe a little more the importance of getting your second guy ready. But I don't think that's the driving force, though. I really don't. I think the driving force is Drew Aller's that good, and they're seeing that.
But he's playing everybody else everywhere.
I hear you.
74 guys played, and 74 guys meaningful downs. Is it 17 or 19 guys caught passes? 17 different receivers caught passes. I mean,
16 different receivers all of last season caught
there you go.
passes.
So, I mean,
that is insane. When you stop and think about that, 17 different players in one game.
Penn State football history, 11 seasons.
They had more than 16 guys, 17 guys caught passes.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that is an absolutely eye-popping stat.
So
I
wrote on. I do my predictions for 24/7 with Mark Brennan and stuff like that. So I have to get them on by Tuesday. So I got to think about this. So I have been thinking about it, I said it's like is that coaches. This is eerily similar. We're off by 2 games, but it's a very similar trek we're going down of us going down last year. So I'm going to consider this Auburn game this week our Iowa game last year.
Yep.
And I really think that James has learned from a lot of the different mistakes that he has had in the past, specifically last year, not having a backup guy ready to go. And I think that he went into the season saying, we can never allow that to happen again. Like I always used to say that Joe had always seen everything 2 or 3 times on all his years of coaching.
Right.
And he knew how to adjust and this and that.
Sure.
And you're seeing adjustment on the way by Coach Franklin in getting more players out there. And going out there and, I mean, that game was over in the first quarter. Like, you knew that Penn State was just going to go out there and just stomp these guys. And it was just like, okay, let's stay healthy. Let's get nobody hurt and, continue on to finish these guys off. So that's exactly what they played the rest of the game. They got Aller in there for some significant plays. A lot of guys making catches. Defense is stepping up. I mean, you got a lot of guys rotating in. I still want some more pressure on the quarterback, in my opinion. I don't think we have to worry about this week. I think we have to worry about the run game. We'll talk about that more on Thursday, but the run game of Auburn is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
But we better be ready for that. But I like where we're going. I'm just saying the similarities to where we were this year going out to Iowa versus us going to Auburn right now are just very it's uncanny, and I hope that we learn from our mistakes. And we keep on saying we hate the fact that our guys have to go on the road to play the Big Ten to open the season, but it works out pretty well in the long run because our first away game is not at Auburn. You know what I mean? Because
it works out if you get the W, which they have. I mean, to their credit.
Yeah. So it's just when you travel versus you have a home game and then you travel, it's a whole different situation. You're in a different world. You're in a different bed. Something as simple as where you're sleeping. So you're in a different bed. You're out on the road. You're eating hotel food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a day or two before, and then you're down there, and it's like everything changes. It's like you're not in your home. You're looking in a stadium, you're making catches. You've never been in that stadium before. There's a lot to add, a lot of stuff that changes when you're playing on the road. And I'm glad we have that on the Purdue game under our belt.
No, I'm with you. I do think, though, the road games also give you an opportunity to develop a little more chemistry in terms of off the field. There is something special about those road trips, I think, for athletic teams in that, okay, let's go, explore for the, a lot of it is regimented, but you have an hour or so, let's go to the mall or whatever you might be doing to have an opportunity. But you're hanging together and you're, again, building just more of that chemistry, and you're in the meetings and all of that, and it's just a little different. You're able, I think. I mean, I haven't done it. You can speak to it, but I think you're able to dial in a little more than you are. At home. Just because, and not that I think it's a terrible distraction or anything, but you have people asking for tickets. The lead up that 24 hours before the game, and I know they go to the hotel and they get the kids away and all that, but it's still it's just different. It's just you guys is what it feels like when you're on the road, and I think that you can kind of galvanize sometimes around that.
I love going in an away stadium. I would love to be part of this party going down there this weekend, and just there's nothing better in this world than to have the whole world just all like that 70 or 80,000 people just screaming and yelling and wanting to beat the tar out of you and this and that, and then you just go out and take their freaking hearts. It's the greatest feeling in sport, in my opinion. We used to love doing it and just be like, that first 10 minutes of that first couple drives of that game, if you can come out there and do something, you take their heart, right? You take the fans right out of that game, and then it's all gravy from there. They have a great opportunity this week, and and again, I go back. This is the game that's going to put Penn State. Okay, they're going to start opening eyes. They got us ranked 22 right now in the country, but I mean, how the SEC is a little. Everybody's in love with the SEC. So going down to a supposed tough place to play, we don't know this. And going down there and taking their heart, I think that we can drop into the top 15, in my opinion, if we get a win there this week, which I suspect that we will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning that way also. I think this is a big game, and not, I don't think Auburn's contending for a national title, so I don't mean big in terms of, I think it's big for where this program is right now and for what this team is trying to achieve this season. And I do think this is a dangerous game. Obviously, any SEC opponent on the road is, a danger. But getting Nicholas Singleton going the way they did on Saturday, and again, I understand it's Ohio. I'm not proclaiming Singleton in the Heisman race or anything like that. But again, he did what you expect a big-time recruit to do, against inferior competition. He broke, we were talking about it. It's like you got to be able to break a couple of big runs, and he did. And I think that, if nothing else, there's some confidence now that has to be developing with that offensive line and with the running backs. I don't know if the running backs, the freshmen anyway, needed the confidence, but I think that group is growing. Now, I think, as you said, Auburn's run game is
we better be ready.
The concern going into this matchup on Saturday. And I think it's a big concern because this is different than what Penn State. Purdue is the running game is as close to non-existent as you're going to see in college football. And listen, Ohio had a nice passing game. I think they had a nice game plan against Penn State. And I think Penn State, was able to just kind of wear them down. And it's hard to be consistent on drives, and I think that's what Penn State now has to step up and force Auburn to do is say, okay, yeah, you have a good running game, but can you put together 10, 12 plays and drive down the field against a defense like Penn State's? And we're going to find out on Saturday. I'm not telling you definitively I know the answer one way or the other, because I do think that's a question mark right now, especially with that D line is, all right, let's see how you do against a running game that is, a legit big-time running game.
The way I see it is, the way football to me is if you have a good run and pass team, they're very tough to defend. So you have Purdue, who barely has a run game, and they're all about the passing game. You can shut one aspect of their game down. You can do it. And we for the most part, shut down Purdue's passing game. So now we're sitting here, we have this big, strong, running back and running game that's going to come out from the SEC at Auburn. So it's like, okay, well, you know what? We can shut that down. We have very good defensive backs. Put those guys out in the island and say, you have to beat us by passing the ball.
Yeah.
You put 8 in the box and say, okay, you got to throw the ball to beat us. And if they're not good at it, then they're in trouble. There's just no doubt about it. It's like Penn State in the last few years. Teams knew that you weren't going to run on them. That's how bad our run game was. So they were just sitting there saying, okay, well, you got to pass on us. You have to, if you're going to beat us, you got to pass on us. But we're going to sit back in a lot of zone because we know we can stop you with 6 guys up front. Yeah. We know you can't run the ball, so throw the ball. And Nick Singleton doing what he has done, and the other guys are doing well also. They're doing very well also. The fact that we have a run game, they can't just sit there and say, okay, well, we're going to sit back and defend the pass. Because you got Nick Singleton who can run, who can make breakaway runs all the time now. So the hardest thing in defense is to stop a good, balanced team, and I think that we're trekking towards that right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Again, I'm each game I've been more curious to see how different things develop and come along. I'm going to wait till we get through the game in Ann Arbor before I start getting too bullish. I want to see what happens there. And not that necessarily has to be a W for me to be bullish on the season, but Michigan has been pretty impressive, again, against lesser competition for sure through these first 2 games. But, and that's the other thing. We're 2 weeks into the season, and I don't know what to make of much of anything. And I will say James Franklin's approach, right, is certainly the right approach you have to have in college football in terms of it is a 1-game season and all of your energy, all of your focus, because if you don't believe that, talk to Notre Dame, talk to Texas A&M, talk to Wisconsin, talk to, Alabama, again, they know they got by the skin of their teeth in that one. And I think a couple of very questionable calls. That holding call missed to me is actually the bigger travesty in that game than the non-safety call. But for Penn State, we talked about it before the season began, Goon, and it's why again I think most people were 8 was kind of the number for Penn State. 8-4. You know, if you were bullish, you had kind of 9-3. If you were thinking that things were going to go off the rails a bit, you were 7-5. But at 8-4 is kind of where I think a lot of people were settling on this year's Penn State team. But we both said the schedule sets up nicely in terms of if you go out and take care of business.
Correct.
Getting that win over Purdue. Okay, now you get a good win. Again, not a marquee win, but you have the nation watching you, and you get the win. They did that. You come home, you should be able to gain some confidence, get the ground game going a bit against Ohio. They've done that. You go to an Auburn team that, again, very good run game, but I think – certainly a very winnable game, and I think from the Penn State side, you feel like this is a game you should win going into it. And then, again, you have an opportunity to build some confidence against Central Michigan the following week. If you take care of business the way you should against Northwestern at home, then you have 2 weeks to get ready for what will be the test of the season to date at Michigan. And hopefully you take the lessons of those early season games. You use the 2 weeks to the utmost. And again, it's certainly not an unbeatable Michigan team this season. And then, again, who knows? We'll see where everything goes.
My buddy Kehoe out there, Scotty, he watches and listens to the show, so he'll laugh his ass off at this right now. He called me Sunday, and they were already out for Sunday Fun Day. They just got back from the tough Hawaii matchup that Michigan had.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, who did you guys play this week? Ohio? Man, what do you guys got this week? Little Sisters of the Poor." And I said, "We're playing Auburn at Auburn." I said, "Who you guys playing?" He goes, "UConn." And I said, "Dude, come on, man. You literally have the easiest, the easiest out-of-conference schedule like in the history of college football. I don't think we should be throwing stones over there." So, no, but yeah, Michigan, whatever. That's down the road. We'll get there, obviously. I mean, you're all right. It's the way seasons are always been set up. It's always like this is like your little quadrant here. You got to get to this point. James is talking about 1-0. Now we're talking about 4 or 5 in a row, in my opinion, the first start of the season. Then there's like those 3 or 4 in the middle there, and then you get the end of the season. But then you coast. But we're not really coasting right now the way the East teams are playing right now. My lord. But getting through this, I just really. I'm these kids are learning, the coaches are learning, and they're learning from the mistakes of the past few years, in my opinion. I really, really, really believe that. I thought, our offensive line, again, played much better. They got that freaking monkey off their back. I mean, that 100-yard thing, and I hope they've been talking about it.
Yep.
But then just you said, just the breakaway speed of have that threat. Booch laughed at me because I said, it looked like number 26 turning that corner the other day. I was waiting. Will you stop? And he's old man. I mean, I was waiting for him to throw the deuces up like Saquon does. We have not seen that since Saquon. And before that, Tony Hunt was the guy. I mean, there were some guys in the mid 2000s.
What a bust Barkley turned out to be in the NFL.
Absolutely,
though, huh?
Jesus. You think he has a little chip on his shoulder? You think he has a chip? That chip on his shoulder is a boulder, man.
Not a bad start to the season.
He's out there pissed off. I mean, he really is.
Yeah.
So
he was running with a purpose.
I just
that's for sure.
The fact that we have that threat of that breakaway run that can happen at any time. That's going to slow defenses down. It's only going to help us, and especially help us in the pass game.
Yep. And I think you're. There's a couple of things. Again, Clifford still needs to just be more consistent with his accuracy, and the receivers have got to be more consistent hanging on to the football. There's still too many drops. And again, it's
you don't talk about them when you win by that much, but
they
need to be addressed.
The coaches are talking about it, I guarantee you, and hopefully the players are talking about it amongst themselves because. Those are the things that, you can overlook in a 46-10 romp. They're not going to be overlooked when you're playing in Ann Arbor or you're taking on Ohio State, in front of 110,000 at Beaver Stadium. I mean, those are the plays that you have to make, and you've got to make some spectacular plays too. And I think that that dangerous word of potential is certainly there. I mean, I think that receiving core has the potential to be a great core, but it's been okay so far this season. It needs to be better than okay for this team to get where it wants to go. And where I really do think it can go. I mean, we've been saying it. I think the talent is there on this roster. I think the leadership, all of that. And the kicking game, I mean, has been, save for the, one mess up on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you rightfully should feel confident with both the punting and the kicking game.
I like where we are
into the rest of the season.
I really like where we're sitting at right now and how we are and how this team is and their mentality as well as the coaching staff. I really like where it's at. But
I think we are really going to see for the first time the toughness component tested here on Saturday. Purdue was a challenging game, but it wasn't a toughness in terms of, all right, let's man up helmet to helmet, see who's that's Auburn is banking on, yep, we're going to line up and we're just going to beat you at the line of scrimmage. And I think Auburn goes into this game rightfully feeling like it can because Penn State has been overmatched at the line of scrimmage in a lot of games over the last couple of seasons. And I think last year was pretty much a wash in terms of at the line of scrimmage in the Purdue or the Auburn game at Beaver Stadium. So I am both anxious and excited to see how that plays itself out here on Saturday with both Penn State's offensive line and defensive line. What can Penn State get accomplished at the line of scrimmage, and how consistent can Penn State be in owning the line of scrimmage?
They better step up. I mean, the defensive line, again, the only issue I have with our defense right now is the pressure on the quarterback. It really seems to be an issue. If it's not a forced, we're not getting pressure with 4. We're getting a couple blitzes here and there or coverage type of sacks, but we need to get pressure on the quarterback. And then not this week because it's a running game and stuff like that, but we better be ready to go. Offensive line has been picked up, in my opinion. For me, it's really improved from this time last year. I mean, last year we were worried about this offensive line already, and I feel as if we're again. I keep on using that. We're trekking. Yeah, we're making the strides of where we need to go. And with Chris and I doing this player show, I'm getting more and more contact with these players and this and that, and I'm really liking what I'm hearing about these guys. And then it's a pride thing, and I love what I'm hearing, and it's like stuff that I had suspected was not happening in the last few years is back, and I'm really, really happy with where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with where they're at, but I really want to see how Saturday plays out before I get fully on board with what I think the potential is.
They're poking. They haven't poked through yet, though.
Yeah, and again, even with the win, because I don't think this is a great Auburn team. I think it's a really good offensive line. Yes. I think it's great running back, and I think a pretty good defensive line. But I think this is.
Again, this is not a Nick Saban coach Alabama team.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I'm saying. I mean, everybody sits there and thinks, oh, it's an SEC school in the South. Oh, my God. Okay. These guys play at Ohio State. They play at Michigan. They play at Wisconsin. They're harder places to play than I'm sure than it is.
I think that's true.
I just don't understand how these people, everybody just is so happy and so like, oh, well, it's Auburn. It's an SEC school. Oh, they must be great. Come on. They're struggling right now. Go down there. Act like Penn State, walk out there, smash them in the face and see how they react.
But I will say this is a big game in that Big Ten SEC battle right now, right? Like that's the other thing is there's no question the perception is there that the SEC is the standard bearer and then the Big Ten is next. And I'm not saying a Penn State win erases that, but this is a big game in that regard as well, right? Like both of these teams, it's important for obviously each school and this year's teams, But I also think this is an important game for the conferences, just from a perception standpoint, if nothing else. And I think, especially after the results from the Big Ten West this past weekend, that a win by Penn State, the Big Ten needs Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, and maybe Michigan State too. But it needs those three, I think, to start living up to the reputations here. Well, Rutgers is up, but I mean, you're not. The rest of the nation isn't looking at the Big Ten and say, "Oh, well, Rutgers is 3-0. All right, the Big Ten is back, baby." But a Penn State win over Auburn again isn't. I'm not saying that then everybody switches. And it's the Big Ten, but it is a big win in a lot of different ways
on paper,
and that is one of them.
In the future, going ahead,
for sure.
You know, for the fans to stop chanting SEC every time an SEC team wins a game. I mean, that's where. I mean, again, I just get a little pissed off about how everybody is just all over the SEC, and they have this aura that they're untouchable. And just, hey man, just go out, roll your helmet out there, go out there and play, smack them around. Don't be. I don't think our kids are going to be in all. I really don't. I mean, the way the media chalks it up, it's like we should go down there like, oh my God, are we going to get beat up? Are we going to get, is our hotel going to catch fire? I mean, like relax. I don't think our guys should be worried about it. I really don't. It's going to be a tough fight. And like Franklin James said on his press conference today, they've been preparing for this game since the preseason. He's had the loud music going all camp. And that was because they were worried about the Purdue loud fans. So the easiest way, I mean, I'm getting all Thursdayed up here on a Tuesday afternoon, Ironhead. I'm getting sweating. I'm getting all jacked up here.
Well, and a Penn State win would be the second biggest win for the conference on Saturday. Nebraska beating Oklahoma obviously is going to be the win for the conference on all right,
so
Saturday.
I guess we got to talk about the elephant in the room.
How bad is that going to be?
How are you? I mean, you were a Frost guy, Nebraska guy. So was I when they hired him. I was like, okay, good for them. I just can't believe how just bad it went.
Yeah, I really can't either. And I mean, that loss Saturday is as bad a loss as that program's maybe ever had.
So did you read into it, like the timetable of the firing, that if they had waited till October 1st, 2 weeks, the buyout would be $4.5 million less. They couldn't wait 2 weeks. That's how. What in the hell happened?
And the thing is, I mean, going back to the discussion with O'Brien or anybody else, I know there's a history there with Nebraska, and I know you will get buy-in at least initially from the fan base. Although I wonder about that now too, because I mean, this fan base, again, ran out of town two pretty doggone good football coaches.
It's sort of what they're getting, what they're
got all hyped up, and I thought rightfully so. Again, I'm not sitting here saying there was no reason to be hyped up on Frost. That seemed like the perfect hire, right? I mean, it really did. And even now in retrospect, I mean, I obviously with the way it played out, you say that, well, no, that wasn't the right. But I mean, who would you have brought in that you would have thought would do better? Because again, he's a Nebraska grad. Obviously, had a great legacy at Nebraska and did tremendous things at Central Florida. Had the undefeated season, and you figured, well, he's going to be able to recruit in Florida because that's where he's been. And again, it just seemed like a great fit. The problem now is, I mean, you've run three, and at Frost, I mean, I think they had to let go.
Yes.
I mean, it's
a done deal.
And I like the guy, and I still think he's a good coach, but I mean, it just obviously did not work out in any way, shape, or form at Nebraska. But I'm telling that feels like a Herculean task right now at Nebraska. And I know Wisconsin and I were both coming off very disappointing losses, and I was still just trying to find some semblance of an offense. But Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, to me, are now clearly ahead of Nebraska in the pecking order. And I think it's going to be difficult really difficult for somebody coming into Nebraska. And I don't, if Bill Belichick came into Nebraska, I just think it is a really tall order to try to get that thing turned around in this climate. Again, with the NIL stuff, I mean, and I get that, again, Nebraska's a little different animal because you don't have the professional sports teams. I mean, this is it.
It's a state.
So you can, but it's still, I just think it's a really, really hard sell right now to high school kids that, hey, come to Nebraska and, you can bank on trying to contend for a Big Ten or a national title. I mean, I think the recruiting game is going to be really hard for whoever
they
comes
lost
in.
their hotbed in Texas and Oklahoma. And,
yeah.
I mean, now they joined the Big Ten, so you have Iowa there. They've always gotten players from Iowa and Texas and that area. But then now they're not going there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, remember a year ago when I said that, every team that joins a new conference, they go through some growing pains, but I think they're stuck in it. They're stuck. They can't get out of it. I mean, our 4 out of 5 losing seasons in 2000 to 2004. I mean, that I'm convinced that was the new conference, and you had to change your ways because you allowed all the Big Ten teams into Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York, and Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. That's where they were coming in and taking players out. So we were not getting the players that we normally were. So we had to adjust
and had to go to the national recruiting. And I mean, and all teams, I mean, all big time programs now are, recruiting nationally. But the issue for Nebraska is, again, I mean, you're competing against all of these schools that are now clearly ahead of you in the hierarchy. And again, I'm not saying it's impossible. We've seen dynamic young coaches take programs with a lot less tradition and history and some of the things going for it that Nebraska has and get things going. But I just think I just think it's going to be a hard sell for a coach. And again, they're obviously going to get somebody, and it may be a home run of a hire, and it may be somebody that turns them around in just a couple of years and has them winning Big Ten titles, and I'll be eating my words. But boy, I think right now there is such a competitive climate in the Big Ten in particular, and really good coaches, really good recruiting bases. And I just think Nebraska, once you lose that mojo, it is really, really hard to get it back again.
I'm interested, and I will watch that game. It's a noon game, I believe, Saturday. It's set before us, I think.
The Nebraska-Oklahoma game?
I think it is.
I think you're right about that.
I'm interested to see, maybe it was the coaching. I don't know. He made that absolutely stupid-ass decision in the Ireland game on the
onside kick attempt.
I just think he felt pressure. I got to win this right now. I got to think outside of the box, and it bit him in the ass. But I'm interested to see if it was that, because I don't know. Maybe the kids weren't playing for him. I don't know. I can't put my finger on what in the hell happened there.
Yeah,
it was like they were cursed. Like, it really does. It feels like they were cursed the last few years, and how you can win it. If you lose the game, they did it every way. They really did. So we'll watch that game on Saturday with the feeling like, okay, I want to see if it's the kids. Are they going to play for this new guy because they got rid of Frost? Maybe they didn't want to play for him. But I never got that feeling that they didn't want to play for him. I don't think that was it. It's just baffling. It's just completely baffling to me what happened there. I mean, maybe they were paying for, they made a deal with the devil in the mid-'90s. I don't know what they did then. I don't know. Maybe they did, and that's what's going on. And the devil wants his due. I don't know, man. Crazy, though. Now,
really
another name I got my friends and old teammates have thrown a name out there, and Nebraska is still a blue blood program with the name and the facilities. I know it's a tough place to recruit because of where they're at, this and that, but you can't tell me that a guy like Greg Schiano couldn't go out there and just. It scares me to think of what Greg Schiano could do out there if he had that kind of, budget, facilities, program, and his coaching style. Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to see him do it, but scary as a Penn State fan, because of what I think he could do out there. It is an unbelievable place. The facilities, the support from the whole state is unparalleled.
Yeah.
So it is a. I mean, if Bill O'Brien were to go back and get that job, it would be a hell of a job for him. I'm a big Bill guy.
I'm with you.
My personal opinion is I think he does want to do college. I just don't think he enjoyed
is that right?
I don't think he enjoyed the NFL one bit, and I don't think the NFL will take him back as a head coach right off the get. I think that he's going to go back.
You might be right about
prove
that.
Himself
I don't know though.
I don't know. He's done it. Built a program back from because we were done, but he has a good program, good facilities, just like we did, and he, you can build from that and look where we're at right now. I mean, everybody says it, and you say it as well as I do. It's like Bill O'Brien was the perfect guy at that situation for Penn State, the absolute best guy for the job that he did, and he did a commendable job, and then moved on. And the fact that people still hold it over his head is just crazy to me to think about. But I would not be surprised to see Bill go after it. And that is a blue blood program, and they're going to pay good money for a head coach.
That they will do. I mean, there's no question
deal
about
with Trev
that.
Alberts. I don't know. I don't know how Trev is to work with out there. So I haven't heard any kind of bad stories and this and that. But I just think that he's like a Barry Alvarez type, where he thinks he's bigger than the program a little bit. He's the program instead of the football coach.
Yeah,
just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. It is going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
We're only in week 2, Ironhead.
No, I know it.
I'm telling you, the storylines team in the Big Ten, by the way.
The storylines from both college and the NFL weekend. It's just, I mean, your head is just spinning. Well, at least my head is spinning right now, just from just a crazy weekend. And I had a few people, because I'm like, that was a good win over Ohio. And they're like, well, yeah, it's Ohio. I'm like, well, yeah, did you watch Texas A&M? Did you hear about Notre Dame? I mean, yeah, I get it. It's Ohio. But, yeah, this is college football today, kids. And listen, the Marshall win over Notre Dame was obviously awesome. Absolutely unbelievable.
Congratulations, Charles Huff.
For sure. But to be honest with you, the more surprising one for me was Appalachian State. And not because, Appalachian State, I think, is a legit good football team, but they were coming off a marathon heartbreaker, right? And then to go on the road to North Carolina, and then to go on the road, I just didn't think, and I was talking to a couple of people beforehand, I'm like, I won't be surprised if that game is close at halftime, because I think that team is legit good. I said, but they're going to be exhausted. Like, they're just going to burn out. And I think A&M will end up winning by 3 or 4 touchdowns. And Appalachian State, to me, just deserves a ton of credit for bouncing back the way they did from, again, a game that it felt a few times like they had it, that they were going to win that one, and that big, intrastate battle for them and all of that. But to put that heartbreak aside and go on the road against a team that, many considered, including me, considered if there is going to be a threat to Alabama and Georgia in the SEC, I mean, it clearly was A&M. And to go in there and pull that game out, I mean, yes, it's a bad loss for A&M, and I get there's a lot of focus on Jimbo Fish and all that, but I also, how about giving a little credit here to a tremendous effort and job by Appalachian State, the coaching staff and players across the board. That is huge.
I never have had a problem with Texas A&M. Quite frankly, the people I know from Texas A&M, I really respect and like. Since the NIL thing has come out and they are buying a program, they've become America's villain. In my opinion.
The pressure that comes with that we've talked about.
I mean,
they didn't handle it well. This is one game, but they didn't handle it well for that game.
And then, have you ever rooted so hard for Appalachian State other than the Michigan game?
I was going to say, the once upon a time I did.
But one time about 15 years ago. You know what I heard? Did I tell you this? That App State Michigan game, did you know that was the first ever game on the Big Ten Network?
I'm
Pretty
not
crazy.
sure I knew that. Is
Pretty
that
nuts,
right?
man. No, but I mean, everybody in the world. I want to know. I want Texas A&M to fail. I don't like what they did with the NIL buying of a recruiting club. I don't like it. I think it's bad for football. I think it's bad in general. We've talked about this 10 million times. By the way, we got an NIL comment and it's perfect. We kept our streak alive here. So,
oh my gosh, I didn't realize we're
wow. Well, it's all good. So no, but the team everybody likes to hate right now, in my opinion, with Texas A&M because of how that was down and how that all the NIL and the recruiting class thing. It's all whatever. I was happy as hell to see App State win that.
Can I just say, too, that I am surprised, just going to the storylines from the weekend, I would have lost money. I did not bet on anything, which was wise of me this past weekend. But if you had told me going into the weekend that both Baker Mayfield and Russell Wilson would come up short against their former teams, I really thought both were going to win going in. And I was absolutely convinced that Mayfield would. Again, a ton of storylines, but it's just that's one of them. The Cincinnati Bengals are in last place in the AFC North. The last year's and obviously the Rams are in the bottom. I mean, it's 1 week. I understand. I'm not not a time to panic or to get overjoyous with celebration. But man, what an opening weekend, and it sucks you in.
It was fun, man.
I mean, it was going to suck me in no matter what. But boy, there was a lot to kind of digest and work your way through from this past weekend, and it sets up for a lot more excitement, starting with that Penn State Auburn game here on Saturday for us as football fans.
Sure.
We will be back on Thursday. We're going to talk a lot more about that Penn State Auburn game in depth here on Thursday. Until then, be good and be safe.